few seconds here.
Oh, you were.
Tell me when.
It's loading up right now.
Excuse us. We're new at this.
So it looks like we're live streaming. That's working.
Okay, there we go.
No.
Yes, no.
We're not matched up to here. Karen, are we U2ing?
That's live.
Okay.
Yes, we
Welcome.
are. With that.
Okay, welcome all. This is the meeting of the Forest Lake Planning Commission. I am now calling it to order. Karen, could you please call roll?
Give me 1 second here because I'm struggling with something on my end. Just a moment. So sorry, just a moment.
Right. Take a little while to get, back in gear.
Commissioner Young,
Here.
Commissioner Batty,
Here.
Commissioner Miller,
Here.
Commissioner Keen,
Here.
Commissioner Brink,
Here.
and Chair Gerard.
In the absence of Chair Gerard, I will be coordinating the meeting this evening. All those who are able, could you please join us, stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do I have a motion, please, to approve the Planning Commission meeting minutes from June 9th?
So moved.
Second.
Karen, could you please call the roll and note that I will be abstaining since I was not at that meeting?
Commissioner Young,
Abstain.
Commissioner Batty,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Abstain.
Commissioner Keen,
Aye.
Commissioner Brink,
Aye.
and that's it.
Motion passes. We have before us resolution number 06-232101, affirming denial of a subdivision variance application. Thank you very much. Do I have a motion, please, to approve the agenda as it is stated for us? I apologize. I'm rusty, guys.
So moved. Second.
Karen, once again, a roll call.
Commissioner Young,
Aye.
Commissioner Batty,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Commissioner Keen,
Aye.
and Commissioner Brink.
Aye.
Okay, let me try this again. We have before us resolution number 06-23-2101, affirming denial of the subdivision variance application. Donovan, could you please walk us through this one?
Certainly. This was a variance application from June 9th for 7089 North Shore Trail, in which a minor subdivision application was before the commission. And the commission voted to deny unanimously due to the design of the subdivision does not conform to minimum city standards. And no matter how you voted for that, this is something to memorialize the findings and to complete that process. And so it's the staff's recommendation to approve resolution 06-23-2101 to deny that variance application.
For those watching, most folks think of subdivision as a large group of new homes that are being put together. But in this case, what we are doing is we are dividing a property or subdividing a particular property. That was the request. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Karen, could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Young,
Aye.
Commissioner Batty,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Commissioner Keen,
Aye.
and Commissioner Brink.
Aye.
Next on the agenda, we have a variance application, 4851 217th Street. Donovan, could you start us off on this one, please?
Certainly. I'd like to present the application for variance for front setback for Christopher Voxlin is the applicant. John and Joyce Voxlin are the owners. This is a property at 4851 217th Street. It is located in on the north shore of Clear Lake on 217th Street. This property, as you'll see, is consists of this properties that are on the shoreline and on the opposite, where there's a detached garage and a single-family home is on the shoreline lot. These lots do show a lot division, which it's under consolidation. That's important because the proposed home does not have required parking on the shoreline lot, and so therefore, as consolidated lots, that parking requirements can be met, across the 217th Street. And the application itself is to locate a single-family home 14.5 feet from the edge of the private road here. The zoning code makes no distinction between public and private roads for property lines. And just to be clear, this was an error in the actual notice. The 15.3 dimension is the driveway dimension. So that's not the shortest dimension to that front lot line there. So it's the variance request is for 14.5 feet from there. What's unique about this one, or I should say, is unique, I guess, is the accessory apartment that Mr. Voxlin proposes for his aging parents who've lived in this house and owned this property since 1971, as his narrative says. And what we also see here, this is about something over a about 12,500 square foot lot. The proposed impervious meets code. It's 5.7, up from about 15.5% for the shoreline property. The proposed home does meet the front 50-foot setback. I'm sorry, the front meaning it's lakefront, the shoreline setback, and 10 feet on the east and west sides. What is also different about this is the amount of water that comes through this property. It's you know, there's a large wetland complex to the north, and this is the low point in this area of 217th Street. So there's a lot of discussion between City Public Works and City Engineer and Mr. Voxland and his engineer around making sure that any new construction on this lot does not, worsen the situation where there's been past flooding, and also, makes it so that his home and other homes aren't impacted by any flooding. As I note in the staff memo, this is a concern. And sorry, I gotta reboot that. This area was an area of considerable flooding prior to some 2019 work where prior to MnDOT cleaning out a ditch. And our concern was chiefly that now that the ditch has been cleaned out and issues, seems like that's been resolved, that this situation hasn't reoccurred like this since then. But ditches do fill back in, vegetation does fill them. And so it appears that the drainage plan that Mr. Voxland's engineer has submitted is going to work. So we received that news yesterday. So that's kind of breaking news. And this morning after Ryan, the city engineer, reviewed that. What Mr. Voxland is seeking to do is to construct the home 14.5 feet from the front property line. The required setback for the single-family lot is 30. I've shown here in blue the building envelope that's required for new home construction. So you can see the home does meet the requirements on the lakeside, east and west side. However, on the front setback, there's a large amount of proposed home which is encroaching upon the setback, as well as a front entry area on this northwest corner, which is just 23.6 feet from the front lot line. Again, encroaching. This is a property that I've been receiving emails regarding this project for over 14 months. And early on, I did tell Mr. Voxland's father-in-law about these setbacks, and it appears to me that with particularly the front entryway, how that does encroach upon the setbacks, that maybe the message didn't get through. Because what we also see is there's approximately 800 square feet within this building envelope which is not covered, which could be the building designed to accommodate all the uses proposed, the accessory apartment, plus for Mr. Voxland's family. And so I'll note that there's lots of white area here that could be part of a structure without a variance. And also note that the Planning Commission, as in general, doesn't try to say no to projects. What they like to do is say yes with conditions. And a variance application is one of those applications where it's an application where they do say yes with conditions. And the zoning code says that the plan commission shall not approve a variance application unless it finds failure to grant the variance will result in practical difficulties for the applicant. So that if, for instance, if the plan commission said, made a motion to deny this, that there would be practical difficulties to constructing the house that you seek to build, which is a reasonable use for this single-family zoning district. And and it's up to the applicant to demonstrate that practical difficulty would exist. Also, it's up to the applicant to show that the criteria that the plan commission looks at also exists. And these criteria are that the property owner proposes to use the property in a reasonable manner, which I would say they have. Apply the landowners due to circumstances unique to the property not created by the landowner. In Mr. Voxland's narrative, he doesn't point out any unique circumstances with this property. The granting of the variance will not be detrimental to public welfare or injurious to other land or improvements in the vicinity of the land, nor shall it alter the essential character of the locality. I believe that it would not be detrimental to public welfare. The proposed variance is keeping with the spirit and intent of this chapter, and thus the approval of the variance will not do things like increase danger of fire, endanger public safety, cause drainage issues for adjacent property. I don't believe it's keeping with the spirit of the code, if this chapter, which is code, when there's possibilities to redesign the house so that it fits within the existing and permitted building envelope. And that also that I'm going to summarize here, that
I believe you covered all 5.
yeah, that the plight of the homeowner is not created by the landowner. And so at this point, staff recommendation is to deny on the conditions that the applicant has not provided evidence that the variance application meets the criteria for granting a variance. The need for requested variance is created by the actions of the applicant. That, happy to take any questions from the Planning Commission.
Do any of the commissioners have questions for Donovan? Mr. Keen?
Donovan, has this house been in front of us before for a variance?
It has
Before?
not, no.
No? Because that drawing looked really familiar with that deck and stuff close to the lakes.
Yeah, well, I'll say it did receive a variance from the town, from the city, in '93 with the lake house. Also regarding the detached garage.
I wasn't here then.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I believe I was.
I'm sorry. It just looked familiar.
Yes, sir.
Donovan, I saw some elevations. Do we have elevations of this plan that he submitted that we could look at?
There's the floor plan and there's front and rear.
The one I see on the top left is the rear. The one I see on the bottom right is the front, I'm assuming?
I believe that's the case.
Top is lakeside.
Right, I'm sorry. I forgot Lake Properties, the front. My fault. The one on the bottom right is the street side then.
Correct.
And then could you go back to the actual layout of the floor plan one? So that front area where normally there would be a garage, is that still a garage or is that the apartment for the parents?
That is the apartment for the parents, yes.
Okay. And I'm guessing someday if the parents aren't here, it's going to be converted potentially back to a garage?
That's potential. You know, I believe though, if the investment is, you know, for that sort of plumbing and fixtures, it could be rather considerable. I'd question whether it goes back to a garage, but nevertheless, the parking requirements are satisfied for this property.
And where we're seeing the biggest challenge is that front setback where the apartment is and the front porch, basically.
Correct. Those are the areas that encroach into the front setback.
All the questions I have for right now. Thank you.
Anyone else have any other questions of Donovan? Yes, sir.
Did I hear you correctly to say that you've been working on this application for 14 months?
I started receiving emails in April of 2020.
Okay.
One more.
Mr. King?
So the drainage plan that was submitted to the city, is it acceptable or?
It is, yeah, I confirmed with Ryan that it's the plan that he and the project engineer discussed, and he faithfully rendered what, you know, what the city wanted for that. I can pull it up if you want, if we can discuss it, but it involves actually restoring a ditch that was filled in some number of years ago, and some small drain tile put in, drain tile rather inadequate to receive the flows that were coming at the time. It looks like it's drier now, fortunately. But so they're planning, you know, larger drain tile, but actually more ditch and actually emergency overflow down by the shoreline, since there's kind of an ice ridge. Actually, you know, it's higher, right, the shoreline before it drops to the lake level.
But that's the lake level at today's level, right?
It's today's level, but what we found on going there was actually there's township drain tile, a culvert, you know, actually underneath a tree and underneath, you know, that actually was the original drainage when there was a ditch.
I'm just thinking, you know, the normal depth of that lake is probably a few feet lower this year now than it has been normal level.
Yeah, I mean, it may be, but that's not an issue in this case.
Did you say that there was a square footage? And maybe this is a question but I'm just curious what the square footage of the house is.
It is some little over just 2707 square feet.
Okay. I don't want to get over technical here, but I'm just trying to figure out the area of your parallelogram there. I believe it's height of the parallelogram times one of the legs. I'm measuring 80 feet of length there, which is about right, because the lot is that 100-foot bottom there, the overall lot width about 100 feet. And then I measured 50 feet for the height of the parallelogram, which would mean that the area of that parallelogram is 4,000 square feet, plus or minus. And if the house that they're showing is 2,700 square feet, something.
So what I used to measure that, and this is something where the actual survey that was submitted, you know, does show an erroneous building envelope because it runs all the way across the road. In this,
I could be wrong, you know.
Yeah, but I measured.
2,700 is just a little under 3,000, so. I didn't, you know, I don't. like if you, your contention, I believe your contention is right, that the square footage of this footprint fit within that parallel. I'm just trying to figure out how the area of the house that they're proposing to build fits into the area of that parallelogram building pad that fits within the setback requirements. And it looks to me, I mean, just eyeballing it, it looks to me like it easily could fit in there.
I
I mean,
I
Did you
believe that-
go that far? I mean, I'm just,
That, I mean, that's what I see.
okay,
Yes.
so we're in agreement on that. And we can just, the owner can address that.
Are there any other questions of Donovan right now? Mr. and Mrs. Voxland, would you like to make any comments?
Thank you. First of all, the application is myself, Chris, my wife, Lori, and my mom and dad in the back, John and Joyce. The goal of our variance application is to get approval to build closer to the private road than the 30-foot setback, as we talked about earlier. The private road positioning makes the lot shallower than others. The shallow lot and the need to add an accessory apartment for taking care of my parents in their old age are the hardships causing our variance application. Taking care of elderly is an important issue facing our society today. We saw during the COVID-19 pandemic that high-density nursing homes were not only dangerous for the spread of disease, but also caused elderly people to be lonely and isolated away from their family. I have several friends who watch their elderly family members wither in isolation and die alone. We need better solutions for caring for our elderly parents, and there needs to be some flexibility to support this movement. Some of the factors that show the reasonability of our variance request. First, 217th Street meanders at varying distances to the lake shore, but generally the road location creates small depth lots. This is one of the narrowest distances from the lake shore, the lot we're on. The current structure is non-conforming to the lakeshore setback and the setback to the western property line. Our proposed structure will be compliant to the lake setback as well as all neighboring properties. If something has to give, we considered the lake and the neighbor setbacks a higher priority than the setbacks to the private drive. I made a short survey of the 17 closest homes. 72% of those properties were non-conforming to the road setback. 72%, including recently built structures. Just down the road at the very entrance of 217th Street, there's a garage 4 feet off the road. So we are certainly not creating a situation that creates a new bottleneck. Also, to address what Donovan was saying earlier about the parallelogram, if we created a house that fit exactly in that shape, it'd be a very difficult house to build. It wouldn't be square. It'd be diagonal. So yes, we could construct a house that would fit into that shape, but it'd be sort of a strange looking house. Furthermore, that northeast corner of the parallelogram is the area that we need to create drainage to the lake. If we were to construct in that corner, there's no longer that drainage path. So the way that we've done this keeps that drainage path open to the lake, exactly like the city engineer's been looking for. The third point is that we have unanimous support from our neighbors for this project. If the zoning administrator's concern is related to a negative impact to the neighbors, they don't seem to share his opinion. Here's some historical background information that was not clarified in the city report. Some of you may know this or not. 217th Street North is a road that's owned by the residents, was built originally by the property owners, and is maintained by the property owners. We pay taxes on that acreage. It's a shared driveway more than a city road. The city does not have storm sewers, lighting, curbing, sidewalks, anything like that to consider on this property. One of the main points on the city report was related to drainage. And I know that we've talked a little bit about this, and it complies with the city at this point, but I think the history is important. This area of Clear Lake is certainly lower than some other properties on the North Shore, but our property is not in a swamp, as a report would have you believe. Historically, the wetland to our north drained to Mud Lake to the west. That drainage was cut off in 1972 with the construction of I-35, and the management of that drainage moved to the Minnesota Department of Transportation. I'm not sure of the exact date, but around 1980, Forest Lake Township installed 2 large culverts at the outflow of the wetland area. They installed them at 891.5 feet above sea level. We noticed that this permanently raised the water level in that wetland. In 2018, the state was working on the I-35 construction project, as Donovan said, between 97 and Broadway. During this period, the drainage was blocked in the ditch that ran along the freeway. This drainage ditch along I-35 is the only outlet for the adjacent wetland. In addition, many acres to the north of 11th Avenue Southwest that has been heavily developed drains down to that wetland. When we had unusually heavy rains in 2018, the water could not flow along its normal outlet, causing the wetland to overflow to the south towards Clear Lake. The photo included in the city's report was taken during this event. I would argue that this flooding event was a temporary failure of public drainage infrastructure, not an indication that our property has unmanageable drainage. However, we've updated the drainage plan to the satisfaction of the city engineer. So in summary, not only is this variance justifiable, it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Do any of the planning commission members have questions of the applicant?
Drainage is not an issue as far as I'm concerned. Mechanical waste is the, I believe that that can happen even if you built a house that completely filled that parallel. That's what I believe. I don't see here anything that's terribly restrictive along those lines. You know, Donovan said earlier, we're trying to figure out a way to make this thing work. And unfortunately for us, this private road issue isn't a make or break thing for us. We cannot differentiate between a public and a private road. And you know, I don't have scale drawings here. I'm used to working with scale drawings, but I do believe that this house could be built in a rectilinear manner and fit on the site, and have you be able to add the apartment or whatever you call it, and that it wouldn't be in a parallelogram shape. I think it could be done rectilinearly and fit on there. If our numbers are right, and I could, even if I'm off by 10%, I gotta get over here. Even if I'm off by 10% on the area of the parallelogram, let's say I'm 10% high, let's say it's only 3,600 square feet. It still means there's 800 square feet of slop, you know, to work with, assuming you want to maintain the 2,700 and change footprint of the house. So when I look at this, I believe that there is a way that the house that you want to do, it would be shaped a little bit different than what you have. But I think turning some elements on there 90 degrees just turn the two, it's essentially, the house is a zigzag or a Z-shaped house, and if you just turn those two elements, the outside, the short elements, 90 degrees, you're very, very close to having that fit on the site without a variance. And I personally think that that's what to me, it's worth a try to see if you can't do that and come up with a house that, looks the way that you want it to look.
Are
Can
there
I-
other questions of the applicant?
May I respond to that?
Certainly, sir.
Okay, so if you look in that top, I guess, be the northeast corner of that parallelogram, that is the key drainage towards the lake. And the more we build into that corner, the more we're pushing drainage to the neighbor to the east. It's Steve Holbeck, great neighbor, and we've been trying to deal with drainage issues together for years. And the last thing I want to do is be pushing more water towards his property when I could have it run across our property in the proper drainage direction.
Are there other questions of the applicant? We are required to hold a public hearing this evening. I'm going to now open the public hearing. If there are any folks that would like to speak on this, in addition to the emails or letters that you have already submitted, please come on up. We would ask that you state your name and your address and tell us whatever it is that you want us to hear.
Come up to the dais.
This,
Yes.
okay, because I saw that you've got the other mic set up. Okay, then just come on up to the dais. That big old speaking podium. Karen, is there anybody also that you might want to queue up that is online?
Commissioner Young, I don't have anybody online that is speaking.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Ron Coleman. I live at 4823 217th Street. I'm just 3 doors down from Lori and Chris want to build her house. I think all of our neighbors are just looking at everybody on our street, and there's a lot of improvements a lot of people would like to do. And I think that's what Lori and Chris are doing. They're trying to improve our neighborhood. And if you drive, I don't know how many of you have driven down our street? Have you met a car on our street? Anybody met a car on our street? You have to you have to stop and let the car go by before you keep going, correct?
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm just saying it's more of a driveway than it is, and it's our property. Like Chris said, we do pay tax on the road itself, and we maintain the road, we do everything on the road. So I'm not sure where that 30 feet comes from. I was always confused on that, being we own the road. Where do you measure 30 feet from? So, and if you drive down the road, you'll see there's houses that are 10 feet, like Chris said, 4 feet, 10 feet, 12 feet, 30 feet. They're all over the board. There's nothing that's been set before on any distances or anything like that. There was a house put up last year that they can't park a car in front of the house. Now, I don't know how that one passed, but it's there. But they can't park, they have to park the car sideways because they can't park it full length into the driveway. So there's just a lot of things that go on our street that it isn't a public street that a normal public street you can measure from, I guess, because it is a private road. So. But everybody's trying to improve the street and improve everything that's on that road. So if we could get that variance, I don't think it's anything out of ordinary, and everybody on our road, I don't think there's anybody that's against what he's trying to do there. So, thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
I'm Trudy Blake, 4887 217th Street, so 3 doors the other direction. I'm not a public speaker, and right now I'm like shaken to be up here, but I'm so passionate about this and why we need to do this for these people. When we moved on to 217th Street, now 9 years ago, we found the most wonderful neighborhood. It is a secret gem. And the Voxlins are a big part of that. And we've become really close with John and Joyce. And I really feel that what Chris and Lori are trying to do for their parents is such a wonderful thing. Wouldn't we all want to be able to take care of our parents? I lost my parents young, so I never had that chance, but we should all be wanting to do that. I hope my kids want to take care of me when I get to that point. So anyway, I just think that that's really, what they're doing is such a wonderful thing. And to be just, 15 feet away from doing that is just unbelievable, especially when you look at the other properties, like people have been saying. I don't want to call out names, but Charles Durkin is not even 15 feet from the road. And that house was just built 2 years ago. So why is this, a motion to deny? I really, really encourage you to vote to approve the variance, and I thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Yes, sir.
Hello, my name's Charles Rinke. I live at 4873 217th Street. I'm just 2 doors down to the east from the Voxlins. So I'm speaking for myself, but also my neighbor that's not here, also Steve and Nancy Holbeck. They're the ones that have had basically a gracious contention with this lot line since I've lived there 6 years. I'm the guy that gets in the middle, like they come to me and what's the best way to fix this? And without, because they don't want to offend each other, people are very gracious in the neighborhood, And he keeps, I know this may not be the real deal breaker for you, the water or the elevation, but I know he brought that up again. I've witnessed this contention, and it's true. Steve's house is in a low area too, and so is mine. And I was in here getting a variance, 6 years ago with Donovan, and the commission was gracious enough to give me the variance because I was making an improvement. Because what was there was just, it really wasn't non-functional. It was so low and it was rotting out. And, I had to get the variance and I had to go through the codes and get my house up. I think it was 30 some inches above the high water table. So if they can get that house up in that drainage, I don't really see an issue with it. And again, they're making an improvement to an area that has had issues with flooding in the past. And they're just trying to do a good thing. And I know you guys maybe can give them a blueprint for their home, but it's not the one they want. You know how it is, you've built homes. When you build a home, you want to build it the way you want it because you have a dream. And they've dreamed their whole life about one day knowing that their parents were going to pass and they'd have to take care of them and they were going to build this house. So, I'm just, there's a heart issue here too, and I just can't see why this would not be. It's just a few feet to the road that they want to build their dream house. And if you drive down there, there's several places. There's one house as you come in there that's not even 4 feet from the road. And I realize, laws and stuff change, but what they want to do is just going to be such a vast improvement, not just for them, but for the neighbors and everybody, because it has been an issue. And frankly, we all feel bad for the Voxlins because they live on the lowest piece of property there. Every time it rains like that, you just see all this water there. And here's John, he's a senior man. He's out there with water pumps day and night, pumping water out of this just to maintain a place to live. And so whatever they're doing is going to be a vast improvement. I just can't see this driveway thing really being a major issue when you see what else has gone down there. So I understand that there's certain, codes and laws with the state and city, but I'm just asking you to consider once again that the private road issue, it's we have to repair it. We have to put money towards it every year. And we're a community of people that love each other and help each other. And we so want to invite them into the community to be a part of who we are because we love their mom and dad, and we'll probably soon love them. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak?
Sure, I get to follow Charles. Thanks for your time tonight, Commission, appreciate it. Basically, I'm Eric Swenson. I have properties at 4839 and 4845 217th Street, so that would be right next to them, the two properties next to them. And I'm all for the building of this house. I mean, it's a great opportunity to see Chris move back to the lake with his family, still have his parents there who are fabulous people, and just, you know, have a whole family there again. I've been there, basically our property has been in the family since 1927, but I noticed that, you know, of the 35 properties on 217th Street, there are roughly about 27 properties that do not fit the 30-foot setback. And that's a pretty good amount, especially, you know, I mean, this comes with the parallelogram of the lots. It's hard to build a reasonable size house on a lake, you know, no matter where you are. And these lots are 50-foot lots or 45 or whatever they might be. And his is 100. But to build, you know, a realistic, normal house on it is very tough. So this setback, this variance, I think is definitely needed for this particular house. Again, as a lot of them mentioned, we live on a private drive. We maintain it, we pay for it, we pave it. We kind of decide on what the width of it is going to be. It's very narrow so that we can kind of keep our lots bigger. So there's a lot of jetting in and out of cars and things like that. And we basically, you know, love that road and love it as a private road. As far as the drainage, has been mentioned, you know, the freeway was built in about 1969. There was agreement between MnDOT and the landowners on the North Shore to make sure that drainage ditch was emptied out and cleaned out on a regular basis. That was not the fact. They hadn't cleaned it out in years and years. So basically, over the years, vegetation grew in the ditch, raised the table of the swamp, and eventually it overflowed into the street. And that was a picture that you saw of 2019 or 18. Since then, we worked with the DNR. We had a meeting here at the Forest Lake City Hall with the city engineer and the MnDOT, and basically got them to resurrect the ditch back down to the level that it should be. Since then, the swamp has dropped over 16 inches. Now, from there, I don't see any possibility of that swamp overflowing in the near future or several years out. I mean, it took it probably 20 years to get up to that level, and it's going to take another 20 probably to get to that level again. So basically, the flooding that we're concerned about, or the city is concerned about, is basically going to be 4 to 6 houses right around the road area of the Voxlands area. So there's not that much water that's going to be congregated in their property anymore. So, and basically that's all I have. Appreciate your time, and I hope you all vote for giving them the variance. Thank you.
Is there any other folks that wish to speak? There are times when it is not a lot of fun to be on the planning commission. Yes? Pardon me?
Close the public
All
hearing,
right.
please.
Thank you very much. God, I am rusty. Since there are no others that wish to speak, I am now closing the public hearing. We'll work on this. I live on a dirt road that doesn't have curb and gutter or streetlights that are the other stuff, so I understand that concept. One of the issues that we are going to have to be cognizant of is that whatever we do, whether we grant the variance or we do not, that sets a precedent for the rest of the city. under Minnesota law, whether it's a private road or a public road, if it's within the city, the rules are the same. So just because something is a private road does not mean that we should ignore or set aside without very strict requirements, whatever the zoning code requires. But there are reasons for variances, and before we go through further discussion, is there a motion that the planning commission wishes to make?
I'll make a motion here to get it on the table for discussion by the planning commission, because there's some other things that I'd like to say about it, but I make a motion that the variance for request be denied.
Do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
Would you like to start the discussion, sir?
For discussion.
Okay. You know, this is, I'm with our chairman tonight. I'd just soon not be on the planning commission when issues like this come up, because nobody's a winner. But I've been on the planning commission here now for, I think I'm in my 8th year. And I've had my hands slapped several times because I wanted to do things that didn't follow rule of law. But I think we need to sort out a couple of things here. And I don't think this is the end all to end all. I personally, I've already stated, I think it's possible to build a house, a nice looking house on this piece of property and have it be the size that you would like the house to be and have it fit within the building envelope that the setback requirements would allow. But I think one of the other things that has come up here tonight needs to be addressed, and it's a thing that's as frustrating for us as it is for you, and that is the fact that there are already dozens of properties on this street alone that don't conform to the setback requirements, the current setback requirements. And I think if we thought about it, all of us know that the reason for that is that those houses were built, most of those houses were built before the road was put in or the setback requirements were established, or someone built a house directly over an existing non-conforming pad. And this irritates the living daylights out of me, but it's possible for someone to do that. I drive by a garage every time I leave my house that is not even 4 feet from a very busy street, and that garage is only 5 years old. Obviously built long after setback requirements were established for that neighborhood. And the only reason that they could do that was because there was a garage already there that they ripped down and built a new one, you know? And I personally think, I have to tell you that I think that's just the most ridiculous thing that the city allows that. It makes absolutely no sense to me. I'm an architect. I do this for a living. And I've been more often on that side of the table than on this side, neither bragging nor complaining. It's just a fact. So I know where you're coming from here. And I wish I could do something about it, but I do believe that there are ways that you can accomplish what you want to accomplish. And I think I can't tell you what to do, but I would certainly at least suggest that you talk to your architect about the possibility of doing that. Confirm the area numbers that we've talked about here tonight, and see what might be possible as far as fitting a house onto that property.
Usually not. This is your once. Yes, you may.
The house that that several people were referring to on our road is much larger square footage than what we're trying to build. It is on a 50-foot lot, not a 100-foot lot. It doesn't comply with the setback to the road, the lake, or either side property. And we're basically improving the setback to the lake and to the west. And yes, we are not compliant on the setback to the road, but we're improving two other directions, and especially the parts that are related to the environment, getting back from the lake.
I wasn't going to say anything, but I just wanted to address the fact of, I know it sounds kind of simple to say you can figure out a plan in the parallelogram, but, and we gave the example of the garage that's by your house. We are trying to do the right thing, and we're trying to do the right thing for a lot of people. First of all, for our neighbors, for my in-laws, to make a place where they have a separate living place and they can still see the lake, to make a main level master for ourselves so that when we get to the age where we can no longer, our two children, we don't have to leave this house, we don't have to change anything. So I know it seems simple and that just fit it into the parallelogram, but that's the reason why we didn't fit it into the parallelogram. There wasn't a way, and then also we live on a lake. So if you're talking about a lake, you want to maximize your front to face the lake. So if it was a house on any city block, it would be a no-brainer. But there's just all those little factors that make the parallelogram not the best option. Thank you.
Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to address some of the non-conforming issues that have been referred to, and just remind the commission that variances are a case-by-case basis, and one of the evaluation criteria is not if there are similar properties, non-conforming properties nearby. And I did research that the variance request that was granted at one of the properties that you've referred to. This planning commission issued a variance for flexibilities on the east side, about 5 feet from the western property line, and 16 feet from the road edge. What was built there is not that, at least on the road side. So that is not, I believe, a valid argument for this to make before this commission when they issued a variance for 16 feet to that road edge.
In other words, Donovan, what I'm hearing is that particular one with the 4 feet was not built as city permit, was not built according to the permit.
As the variance was granted. I just discovered that myself.
All right, other planning commissioners? Unfortunately, I have been around for a long time. And I remember when the Planning Commission did not act in accordance with the laws of the state of Minnesota and with our ordinances. And not only were we sued, but we paid a very large penalty. My issue is, my heart is here with you. And if I vote to grant this tonight, then that means that the next variance where someone says, well, I'd like to maximize my view, or I can, if I have this particular layout, it will be fine. I have to grant it because I have set a precedent, right? The actions that we have here do set precedent. We have, on occasion, I can remember a couple of decks where it was, if we could go another 4 feet, then my view to the west and the sunsets would not be blocked and life would be good. And 3 years later, Michael, I think you remember one of these, Well, if I could just go out another 5 feet, because now my view to the east is blocked and I can't see the sunrises. These things tend to encroach. Usually when we allow variances, they are due to a very steep slope or a property that was subdivided back in the township days and is entirely too small, or there is something specific about the property that does not allow any design to occur. Donovan will tell you that as we rewrite the zoning code, one of the things that is going to be very important to me is that we allow mother-in-law or daughter dwelling units, accessory units. So that's not my issue here. Now that you fix the drainage and there will never be a pipe there, and it will always be a ditch, which will be a requirement would be a requirement of this, I can understand the drainage issues. My concern is the precedent that we're setting. However, I know that this was done for discussion. Are there any other comments from any of the planning commission members? Yes, sir.
We want to help you, really do. And I think you're really close. I don't think we're going to approve this and the way it is. I mean, if you could adjust some footage, we can't tell you what to do. But if you could adjust some footage on that garage or on that back porch, and maybe we're only looking at a 5-foot variance versus almost a 20-foot variance, you'd probably have better luck. Not saying for sure.
There's a range in,
No, there's not.
well, that's what you just
How
said.
do we run at that? If 15 feet is not enough, where do we go for?
Well, yeah.
You know, I can't answer that question. I don't know what to tell you. You know, we look at, you know, this is a new built house. I mean, you're building from scratch. You have a lot of footage to work with, yet your plan is way out of line with the building area you have. And, you know, there's not really what we call a reasonable hardship. And that's really what we look at in variances. Is there some sort of a reasonable hardship here?
Move closer to the lake. That's less important.
No, you won't. I can't comment, but we all empathize. I mean, I totally get what you're trying to do. Looking at your plan, I'm a builder. I see a lot of things that could be done, but I know it's not what you want. I just don't see this getting approved this way, in my opinion.
I was just gonna echo just a couple things. This is such a tough situation. I agree with pretty much everything that's been said tonight out here, and the precedent-setting thing is just so difficult because this time all of a sudden it happens, around the lake somewhere else, and what do you do? Sometimes your hands are kind of tied in these situations, and it's not fun for us. It's really not. But I do think, hearing what Kevin had said and also what Dennis said, it looks like there could be a possibility. I was looking at another house here, just a few houses down, that looked like it was kind of a little bit more in that area. But again, I'm not a builder, so I don't really know what will be the best option. But unfortunately, I'm a little constrained as far as what the variance allows us to do. So that's because where I'm at.
Donovan, if this were to be tabled this evening instead of denied, they could come back with a different plan without paying the monetary penalties of a new plan, correct?
Correct. There is the 160-day rule involving when Plan Commission does need to make a decision on it. So it's a limited extension that's possible.
Working with
It
you.
would be, if there was a mutual agreement between the property owner and the city to extend that more than 160 days, that is definitely possible.
Oh, certainly.
That is something we could potentially do for you. It does not make anybody happy. I do not believe that your variance request would be approved this evening if I call for a vote right now. On the other hand, if we were to table, that would allow you, with mutual agreement, to go back and look at some alternate designs without the monetary penalty of a second request. Yes, sir.
How do we have a constructive give and take so that I can work with the city and find out what the boundaries are of what is acceptable? Because what it seems like is, nope, try again. Nope, try again. And that's not constructive. That takes a lot of time and money. And what I'd really like to find out is, can we sit down together, and if there's some flexing between the city and our architect, we could find solutions. But I think what I'm really looking for is a conversation, not sort of a wall, and then we turn in the next plan and nope, as Mr. Miller said, maybe there'd be some flexibility, but I don't know how much. I don't know where to draw the line. So what I'm really hoping for is a way to work this out so that when we meet the next time, there's not a surprise on either side. That we all know that this is an acceptable plan to the city and it's an acceptable plan to us.
Well, I'd sure like to believe that that's possible, knowing the personalities that are involved on this side.
What,
I think that you could go forward from today with reasonable expectation of an open and honest conversation about this that wouldn't be putting the impetus completely on. I mean, we can't, much as we might like to do it, can't design it for you, but we certainly can talk about possibilities.
I cannot tell you in advance that I will vote in favor of whatever you come back with. Looking at past history here, it would not surprise me if going back on the lot to, not all the way across, but to some of the existing house footprint, since that was allowed before, that may be an option. I understand the challenge with cost. I understand your desire to be building as soon as possible to take advantage of this building season. I completely understand that.
We're also planning to put our kids in Forest Lake High School next year, and that's also one of the timing factors we're looking at.
One of the beauties of living in Minnesota is that you don't have to live in the district to have your kid go to a school in the district. Take advantage of that. Are there any other motions that planning commissioners would wish to make at this time?
Clarification, Commissioner Young.
Yes.
I think a motion was made by Commissioner Batty, and I think a second by Miller on denying the request for variance, so,
By Kuhn. However, a motion to table would
tape.
supersede that.
I don't know if we
And
need
motion
to
table is not
withdraw,
debatable.
okay, I didn't know if we needed to withdraw the,
It would not be a withdrawal. We could
Okay.
have a motion to table. But that is not my motion to make.
I'd make a motion to table.
I would second that.
Right? That is a non-debatable motion. And I am going to put a condition on it, and there's going to be, it will be in the record of this meeting that we're doing that with the understanding that the 160-day requirement would be waived so that we can find a solution.
Do you
So do I, all right? But what we have is, I also have to be in compliance with all the other state laws,
The 100 is the 60-day rule.
60-day
it's
rule.
called.
How
Okay.
quickly can we get back on when we have something, how quickly can we get back on an agenda?
We meet the second and fourth Wednesdays of the month.
Okay.
2 weeks before the meeting.
Donovan, would it be possible to shorten the advance time, since much of the work,
Yeah, what I mean is that usually the required submittal time is 30 days in advance of the meeting. I believe 2 weeks is proper here, given the amount of information we already have. Is in advance of the meeting, instead of 30 days.
Can we make that a week?
Mm,
I mean,
Well, you gotta.
I'm
time-
not,
you gotta-
I'm sorry,
you
I'm
gotta
not trying to
time
be
do-
rude. I'm
You
just,
gotta time to do your diligence.
we
here,
are, yeah, we already have architecture plans, so, I mean, to meet with architect, because we thought this was gonna get approved and we were gonna do tomorrow. So we have our plans. So,
we will ask Donovan to make all haste in review. Right? And if I have to make the same personal request of Ryan, I will do so. Right? Okay, Karen, could you please call the roll? Again, that is a non-debatable motion.
just for clarification, I have a motion to table the request for variance from Commissioner Batty. Was that seconded by Commissioner Miller?
By Commissioner Keen,
Keen?
as the original motion was seconded by Mr. Keen.
Sorry, I'm having a hard time with seeing people here on my end. Commissioner Young,
Aye.
Commissioner Batty,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Commissioner Keen,
Aye.
and Commissioner Brink.
Aye.
Thank you.
Please work closely with Donovan. He'll come up with a solution.
Good luck.
Our next agenda item is a minor subdivision. It would be Cedar Grove. Donovan, can you start us off on this one, please?
Certainly. I'd like to present the minor subdivision application for, on behalf of Mark Smith, the applicant and owner, seated here on your right.
Welcome back, sir.
With his, with his best friend.
Right.
And I'd like to, so this is actually a minor subdivision to create 3 lots in total. No public infrastructure is proposed with this. It's located at the intersection of West Broadway Avenue and 232nd Street. This parcel is actually contiguous with a parcel Mr. Smith owns across, rather, I think it's 39-acre parcel across on the south side of Broadway Avenue that was the subject of a a zoning map amendment to amend the zoning map to turn the whole property to MXR1 from the Highway Business District. And so taking advantage of that, tonight, Mr. Smith is proposing that 3 lots be created on this property. Their size is conforming to the MXR1 standards of 80 feet wide and 12,500 feet, or I'm sorry, 15,000 feet in area. The property, there is public water and sewer in 232nd Street. Also accompanying this, this lot line adjustment is, I'm sorry, this minor subdivision is a lot line adjustment where Mr. Smith is in discussion with Ms. Novak, who owns the property next door at 4535 232nd Street, which is the subject of something later on the agenda. In order to create, and facilitate making these 3 lots. It being a public, county road here on the south, there is an additional right-of-way that is requested by the county as part of their comprehensive plan. It's the 75 from centerline dimension that we learned about with the Timber Ridge 2 project. There's quite a bit of grading that's being proposed to create these lots, shown on this grading plan. Also shown on is also a utility plan, and we see proposed water and sewer connections in this line, and where they meet the street. The city, however, engineer has a concern that based on the submitted plans, there's inadequate sewer cover for this 3rd lot. Lot number 1 is labeled here. Where approximately, well, I think there's been some discussion around what exactly is that, whether it's 6.2 or 6 feet of cover for this sanitary line, which is our main concern on this. City standards have it at 7.5 feet to 8 for adequate cover for sanitary sewer line. This is a 2-inch service line. Record plans do show across the street there is a insulated pipe, sanitary service line again, that's approximately, I believe, it's a little over 4 feet deep. That was built over some 30 years ago. The city does not have that standard now, and the standard is that 7.5 to 8. I can pull up something from the city engineering standards that has 8 as the sewer clean out at the property line, that required depth. And so with this, city is requiring with the subdivision the dedication of 5 and 10 foot drainage utility easements along the property boundaries. The lot line adjustment is something that we've not completed. It has staff review for that. And if the Plan Commission makes a motion to approve this, the condition approval would be the successful completion of the lot line adjustment to allow for the easternmost lot, this lot 3, to be created, as well as a document recorded with lot 1 that to go run with the property, that sanitary sewer line is at risk for freezing in the winter, and the city's not responsible for that. Unfortunately, the city does get calls for frozen sewer lines. A homeowner won't know whether it's under city, the trunk line, under the city street, or on the private property. And for that, the staff recommendation is that the Plan Commission adopt the findings of fact that that the subdivision does not conform to the minimum standards with relation to adequate sewer depth for one of the lots. Recommend to City Council denial of the minor subdivision due to the following conditions. The subdivision does not conform to minimum city standards with relation to adequate sewer depth for one of the lots. Without an approved lot line adjustment, one lot has inadequate width. That's the state of that lot line adjustment at the moment. It doesn't have to be permanent, but the staff does feel strongly, and we've had many conversations with Mr. Smith and his engineer around city standards, and that's something that needs to be adhered to in this situation. In my conversation with the city attorney, asking perhaps if the planning commission could make pass a motion to allow for two of the lots, recommendation of approval. And the city attorney said that this was the proposal, and it really is something that the planning commission can't approve what they'd like to approve, but they have to actually, if so desire, if you make a motion to approve, it has to be for this project, or deny for the project as well.
Do any of the planning commission members have questions of Donovan regarding this application?
You said there was many conversations. What were the conversations? I mean, what was the feedback then for?
We went through a few iterations. Initially, Mr. Smith submitted a plan. Actually, it was a major subdivision plan, which involved raising the road so that he could get adequate sewer depth. We weren't sure at that point if that worked. It was also a situation where it was about 310 feet of linear road, actually. So it was a large thing. We weren't sure about all those impacts of that around drainage, new culverts, new ditching, that sort of thing. But as the conversation went forward, Mr. Smith did reach out to the neighbor to the east, Ms. Novak, and they came to agreement where you could gain, I believe it's 20 feet of lot in order to just facilitate, yes, 20 feet in order to facilitate the creation of 3 lots, and that's what you see before you.
There's not another one of these cart before the
Yes,
horse.
yes, it
deals,
is.
it?
Yes, it is.
Jeez, I am so sick of these. 2 nights, or two planning, it's not your fault, but 2 planning commissions in a row. We get. So. Is there not another way to skin this cat?
Is that
Can't
a rhetorical question?
Yeah, that's a colloquialism. Is there not another kind of easement or something? I mean, it seems like we're so close here to making the sucker work. Why can't? Is there, I mean, I see that they've canted the, I printed this out so I can see it, but I mean, is there something in city ordinance about the sewer? I mean, couldn't there be an easement on for the sewer for lot 1 to cross through lot 2? Or is that not a?
Mr.
I know it's
Bat-
probably not
yeah.
good.
No, it's not. We've run into this problem with water lines in the old section of the city, where we have a couple of water lines that are city water lines that are actually going beneath someone's home.
I know
and
exactly where they're at.
Yes, and I think that you also remember another sewer line that goes through the middle of a property. So that, and our engineering standards requiring depth of sewers do have the effective ordinance.
So how close are we here?
we've thrown a lot of numbers around. I think we came at, 6 point, I have to look, maybe I can look
Or
that up.
within,
It's
or within a-
within a couple feet, but
15
that's
inches.
that's at the water line. That's the crown of the road. The road dips to the side,
yeah, yeah.
you know,
I
which further outside the right of way. So it's, you know, that's kind of the, you know, that's,
So the problem is, this, but the problem is the sewer line, is it not? It's not the water line. Can't you just bury the water line as deep as it needs to go? And
yeah, it is just
it is the
sanitary
sewer line that's the
correct.
issue
And then
here, right?
it being a 2-inch service line, there's often, you know, no one's home. There's not a lot of flow there. And so it's much
So
more
what is it, a
susceptible.
force main? If it's a 2-inch, is it?
No, it's a
how-
gravity
which is-
line.
It's a certain, no, we're talking about the service line. The trunk line's in the street.
No, I understand that, but a 2-inch line, a 2-inch sewer line from a house?
That's what Ryan said, yeah.
So what are we doing, a grinder pump here, or what? You gotta do something in case 2-inch sewer lines don't work for most houses.
Okay.
So
Mr.
the
King,
problem is that we don't have enough coverage for the sewer. That's what this boils down to here.
Mr. Keen?
Donovan, number 5, the design of the subdivision or the type of improvements will conflict with easements of record or with, this is where I have a little problem here, is the easements established by judgment of a court. So is there something going on with this property, with the courts yet, or?
Those are our standard, Mr. Keen, those are our standard, 1 through,
Oh, okay.
all right. It's not specific to this.
Okay, I was wondering if this particular,
It's any of the
No.
following findings.
No, that's just a lifting up from code around the criteria, you know, for denial if, you know, a motion's made.
Do I have other questions of Donovan?
I guess I'm just confused. So you were just saying to Mr. Batty that the sewer line that would feed these homes is 2 inches in diameter?
I believe that's what Ryan told me. Am I being incorrect?
Almost
They're
impossible.
they're always 4 inches, minimum 4
Sorry?
inches. 4 inches, they're always 4
4,
inches.
okay, I stand corrected. So it's 4, but it doesn't, I believe the concept might, you know, I might be wrong about dimension, but I am wrong about the dimension, but the
The depth.
it's the flow isn't this, you know, I mean, if it was like a trunk line where there's, you know, many houses feeding into it, it'd be different, but they're more susceptible to freezing when they're, you know, simple
Not as-
service line.
And and you talked about raising the road and that was ruled out?
No,
You guys said no.
huh?
You guys said no way.
That,
That was what
I
Ryan
wasn't a
said.
part of that conversation, but I guess,
From an infrastructure point of view, raising the road would have serious implications for the longevity of the road, especially in a freeze-thaw climate, where you've got it raised up. It creates other infrastructure problems.
And not saying this is something, but you couldn't use some sort of a lift station and bury that line deeper? Have a lift station for those homes there?
You would be requiring a lift station for a single house, and I would almost guarantee that we would be looking at a variance. Right. Are there any other questions of Donovan before I open the public hearing? Then at this time, well, I take that back. Mr. Smith, did you have anything that you wanted to say?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, do I say it during the public hearing, or do you want to hear it
Why
from
don't
me
you,
now?
now, if there are things that you want to say that might inform the public hearing?
Madam Chair, Bill Griffith, I'll also be testifying on behalf of the applicant.
Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, appreciate you being back in person, first of all. It's great to have face-to-face. Those TV screens that were just driving me crazy, so I'm happy we get to see you face-to-face. We're back again. I know last time we were together on this property was about 7 months ago, And at that time, the city approved this property being changed from a commercial zoning to a residential zoning. And it's actually a low to medium density zoning, which allows 3 to 6 units per acre. Now, this is a 2.5 acre piece, so even if you take out all the, right away I have to give up for both Broadway and I still have 1.5 acres of land there. And I'm only asking for 3 lots on 1.5 acres, where we really could have 4.5 to up to 9 units based on what we were telling the Met Council we were doing with this property and what we were using the property for. So 3 lots is, in my mind, is very, very low impact compared to what is actually zoned for and what it's approved for. Both Bill and myself are just trying to figure out why staff is fighting this so hard, because when this sewer was put in, it wasn't 30 years ago, it was actually in 2003 when the sewer was put in that street. And it was done at that time because Brueggemann Homes was doing a development on the north side of that street with 180 homes. 80 of those homes were supposed to drain into the sewer at that manhole that's 3.5 feet deep, and the other stuff was supposed to go down Everton. But and I actually had called the Paul Hornsby, who was the city engineer at the time, who designed that, built that, and said, what is Ryan, who used to work for him, what is Ryan having a problem with? We insulated that pipe out there. We have stubs that are insulated going to the properties to the north. I don't understand. Insulating is a standard, a very common practice to do, that when you have a pipe that's a little shallower, there's no doubt if you were doing a new subdivision, you have to have the 7.5 to 8 feet, but this was done 18 years ago, same time I bought the property, or when I bought this property. And at that time, that standard wasn't there. When you had a pipe that was lower, you insulated it with styrofoam. And there's actually, if you go to Dow Chemical or the different insulating companies, it tells you just how to insulate city pipes, how much you need for how shallow the pipe is. And at 6 feet, which this is what we're showing, 6'2", you're gonna need minimal insulation compared to what you would need at the manhole, where it's only 3.5 feet. He also mentioned there's actually 3 places he knew in the city that had shallower pipe than that, even in the city, where it's 3 to 4 feet manholes. And again, they've even insulated the lids of the manhole covers to make sure that the cold air wasn't getting to those pipes. One other thing about, the water that's coming out of that 4-inch pipe, yes, it's not always coming out, but when it's coming out of a house, it's coming out at least at 53, because it's cold water. That's as cold as it's going to get. And usually if it's a shower or a sink, it's going to be 60, 70 degrees. And it only has to, it races out to that main line, and right off the bat, it's at 8 feet deep before it goes around the corner. So it's not freezing at 6 feet. In my mind, that seems like it's, every contractor that I deal with out there does sewer contract, they've done those shallow services before, and a lot shallower than this, and insulation always works for those. So I don't know why it's being turned down just for this shallow connection. Originally, I did have a 4'7". I wanted to kind of go back to, I had a 4'7" connection originally, which is almost the same as the one that's serving the temple across the street. But they weren't happy about that. That's when I did contact Ms. Novak and say, would you be interested in working something out here? Because that way I would be able to shift my home farther to the east, and it actually allowed me to flip the driveway, so that gave me more of an angle to get farther down the sewer line and get that to that 6 feet. So that was one of the reasons for contacting Ms. Novak. Also, it required less fill when we were moving up that way, because the road's climbing and the sewer's dropping. So anyhow, that's our density there seems way lower than what it should be. I think we've done a lot to make sure that we're not going to have problems with the sewer on these lots. It's a common practice to treat these lots this way. I guess that would be my main thing before your public hearing starts at this point.
Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to address you this evening. It's also nice to be back in person. I represent Mark Smith. I've represented him for about 30 years. Mark is a very practical builder, developer. He works with cities. He comes in, he works towards practical solutions. In this case, he looked at a number of opportunities to develop a 3-lot subdivision. As he said, that's on the low end of density that could be allowed on this property. What you have in front of you this evening is essentially a practical 3-lot subdivision. I say that because you have existing infrastructure in the street. It was constructed some 20 years, not quite 20 years ago. And so you don't have the luxury of kind of jerry-rigging, the system to work. You've got to deal with what you have. And so for the want of about a foot, or maybe a little over a foot of dirt, providing insulating properties, you've got a subdivision that's ready to go. You've got a neighbor who's going to benefit from the sale of the 20 feet because she'll be able to connect to utilities. That's part of the arrangement. And so there's benefit to the neighbor, there's benefit to the city of a 3-lot subdivision versus a 2-lot. It's more homes, it's more rooftops, it's more tax base. And we're looking at basically a foot of clearance, which can be mitigated, as Mr. Smith said, through reasonable means through insulating the pipe. And so what we're asking you to do tonight is approve this with the condition that we satisfy the technical requirements for providing the service, and with the condition that we complete the lot line adjustment. Those are 2 reasonable conditions. And so when the city's looking at, how to approve development in their city, it's not unusual that you have technical conditions of approval that have to be satisfied by the applicant before we can move forward. For whatever reason, and again, reasonable people can differ. For whatever reason, your city engineer has taken a hard line on this depth question, even though it's been satisfied in other locations in the city. Again, as Mr. Smith said, if you were coming in with a brand new, 200-lot subdivision or even 20-lot subdivision, certainly the connections from the road to the subdivision would have to be provided at strict standards. But it can't be done here. And for want of a foot or a foot and a half of clearance, which can be fully mitigated, it seems a little bit ridiculous, if I can use that word, it seems a little bit ridiculous to have 30% of the subdivision deleted just to satisfy that strict requirement. We know that the city standards, engineering standards, do provide for mitigation, that this wouldn't be the first time that somebody proposed something that wasn't strictly conforming to the city's engineering standards, but mitigation is provided, and that's the key here. So we ask you to approve the subdivision with those 2 conditions. We believe that they are reasonable technical conditions that can be satisfied before this project moves forward. Thank you.
Planning commissioners have questions of the applicants?
I'm looking at the plan, and do you have any landscaping thoughts, berm thoughts, anything like that that you have that's associated with these lots at this point, or?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, yes, on the landscape, there's actually why I call it Cedar Cove is that if you've been by the site, there's lots of cedars on that property. And I'm actually hoping the smaller ones that we can maybe transplant a bunch of them and do some work on the outer edge along Broadway there to protect the people that are living there from the noise and sound and the visibility of the road. And we'll definitely, if it doesn't work, if the trees don't survive, then we'll have to add some more trees along that buffering from Broadway.
And is your intention to keep the corner somewhat open for visibility?
The corner, are you talking on the north?
Turn off of Broadway onto?
32nd?
Yes.
There's actually a cluster of trees there that are already existing, a bunch of cedar trees on that corner. So I'm actually hoping we don't have to monkey with those or touch those. We can leave those alone.
Am I seeing power lines there? Does that run right through the property?
There is an overhead line that is kind of throwing me off too. I have a call in to Connexus to try to find out why they didn't follow the radius. Well, I know why they didn't, because it was cheaper this way, but if they're willing to move it to follow the radius of Broadway, they basically took a shortcut across and went to the shortest distance to get to 232nd. They won't interfere with the homes, but at the same time, I don't think people want to have the view of the power lines out their window.
Any other questions of the applicant?
Just a minor point here. Are these 1-foot contours on here? Like, it's such a small drawing, I can't.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Commissioners, yeah, those are, I know it throws me off too, they are 1 foot, that's why it looks like there's so much climb, but they are 1
Right.
foot, so usually you'd have half those lines, but he wanted to show make it more visible on what they were, but they
So,
are.
and having an infiltration basin of this size, that I'm assuming it's not that size, or that's that size for a reason.
If I could interrupt, if there was a approval, a staff condition would be that there be individual rain gardens on the properties outside of the proposed county right-of-way, so that there's no public infrastructure created, no regional stormwater ponds for future city maintenance.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, the only reason we have it showing at that side is that was what Comfort Lake regulations ask for. If the city is able to work with them and come up with these rain gardens, it would make my customers or buyers much happier as well. I think sometimes they just worry that when they're individual ponds and individual lots, pretty soon they get mowed and filled with leaves, and pretty soon they're gone. So that was what Comfort Lake asked for. I'm all for getting rid of that or having such a, there's no need for that. If there's no need for it, I'm happy to get rid of it.
That piece is not our decision.
Yes.
Were there other questions of the applicant? We do have a public hearing this evening. I am now opening the public hearing. If there's anybody here that wishes to comment. And Karen, I don't know if we have anybody potentially online that may be interested in commenting?
Commissioner Young, I do not have anyone.
Madam Chair, can I speak again? Or do you want to say-
When we have closed the public hearing. Is there anybody that wishes to speak? Would you like to?
Good evening. My name is Stacy Novak. I live at 4535 232nd Street. I'm the neighbor that's directly to the east of the property that Mr. Smith is considering putting in his project. And the only thing I really want to say tonight is I hope that you guys do consider approving this. The road, first of all, building the road up, I feel would benefit the neighborhood greatly, as the road has been kind of in poor condition since I bought my house there about 6 years ago. If we get a chance to fix that road, that would be outstanding. There's a lot of traffic on that road with the school in the morning, and I feel that would benefit everybody greatly, and not only with the road, but to take care of the aesthetics of the neighborhood and improve that lot that's sitting there blank would be a nice appeal to everybody in the neighborhood and bring some good neighbors in. So I just ask that you approve this project, and he's been so nice to work with. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak about this? Going. I will now close the public hearing. Is there a motion that the planning commissioners? Yes, sir.
Could I ask a clarifying question first?
Absolutely.
Donovan, could you comment on, you made a comment about the rain gardens for each lot, and then I'd like, if I could, I'd like Mark to address that as well. Can you explain what you meant by that?
So, as Commissioner Young, appropriately stated, the stormwater permitting is through the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District. But where the city has an interest in that is that the city will not accept regional stormwater ponds, and actually it would be creating public infrastructure that would somehow, they would kick this out of the minor subdivision application pathway. So rain gardens is kind of a catch-all phrase here, but basically means stormwater management to meet individual stormwater management areas to meet the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District rules, which basically pre-treatment of 25% of a 1-inch rain event is essentially their rule. So it's more of a detail, but that is important in this case, that the city won't accept any regional stormwater pond, which as we usually would with subdivisions.
So that wouldn't be something we would need to address. That would be something that's addressed if it was approved with the city as a condition to improve the lots.
Correct.
Yes, Donovan.
I'd like to address a couple comments from Mr. Smith and Mr. Griffith. I guess the first thing, and this is something that I don't, I represent staff here. In this case, there's I'm the only player you see on the field. There's a backbench of decades of experience behind me. That's also I'm speaking for, trying to represent their views as well. I'm sure I'm not doing as nuanced as they do. I can characterize some of the conversations we had regarding staff and the standard for the sanitary sewer service lines being a certain depth. The new standard is 8 feet. And that's, for new subdivisions, that's where the city service line, that's where the city infrastructure comes in on a property. When Ryan says, 7.5 to 8 feet cover is required, he's understanding that there's going to be some variation. There's going to be situations where there's going to be new hookups, and there's a bit of variability there. Something that the city is really conscious of is when there's a road, there's not a mantle of snow for insulation. And so when the sewer line depth is not adequate, the city does go out and have to thaw out these sanitary sewer lines. I'm familiar with one on Harrow Avenue, right at the end of, just north of the church there, the Jesu Church of Minnesota. And it's about a 5-foot depth, and they have to go out there and thaw it, for the homeowner. The city in this case, obviously there are situations, as I just mentioned, that do not meet these standards. And it's the reason the city staff feels strongly about this now, is the reason because of those situations where they've not held the standard, or it's been built to a different standard, and they pay the price. So I feel like it's not only the staff I talk to, the public works superintendent or the city engineer, it's also representing the staff who have to go on site to mitigate the impacts when the standards aren't there. Also I want to mention that regarding city and zoning, basically zoning densities aren't a promise. They're simply an allowance, and we have a minimum density that we want to have for efficiency of city infrastructure, and also meeting the minimum densities for the comprehensive plan. And when we city puts infrastructure in, it's not, it's seeking to serve the adjacent lots, but it's no promise that the future development is adequate. Future development that's proposed can be adequately served. And I feel like that's the situation we have here, where the infrastructure is what's there, and it's up for the applicant to propose something that conforms to city standards.
Any questions, follow-up questions for Donovan? Do I have a motion from the Planning Commission?
I'll try a motion here. That's okay. I actually would like to make a motion that the City Planning Commission adopt the findings of fact and approve the proposed minor subdivision of the existing lot located at the intersection of Broadway Avenue into 3 lots due to the following 2 conditions. 1, successful completion of the lot line adjustment, and 2, satisfying the technical requirements of completing the service for the insulated sewer line at a minimum of 6-foot depth.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Planning Commissioners, discussion? Yes, sir.
Got another geometry issue. I don't know if you were here for the last one, but
They were.
that's what that came down to. You don't have to answer this, but I'm just wondering if there is any way physically with, I understand fall and distance and, rise to run and all that sort of thing. There is no way under any circumstances that you can angle a line from lot number 1 to some point on the main there that would allow you the fall that you need and the cover that you need.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, if I can answer that
Yeah,
question.
I'm asking, yeah.
Yeah, we definitely could snip, I don't, if we start making angles down the street, if we could make the frontage of the lot number 2, maybe clip off that corner, we could start that angle a little steeper towards, we would actually be coming out where they are at the Lao Temple, where they're connected at 7'2" or so. We could get a lot closer to that point. So we would probably gain close to a foot, but then all of a sudden we're gonna need a variance or something because we have a lot that's got a clip, I don't know if you'd allow a clip corner, but at the very front of the lot up against the street. No, so I'm trying to figure out how to, the angle might be too tight. I mean, is it possible?
Yeah.
We definitely could sure try to get farther. At some point, we're going parallel, but it gets too long, but that's what, you know, the insulation should definitely be more than adequate. Like I said, the Lao Temple, both ends of it, they have a 3.5 foot. And yes, I can see their concerns, but it's a common practice. It's not an unreasonable thing to insulate and do a good job of it. And we are cleaning up some other things on that street that I think we're actually helping the situation. You know, there's a stormwater problem. I don't want to open a can of worms here, but when that west side estates was built, I know that was one of the comments in your thing, all that stormwater runs off all those houses, runs onto the street, and this dumps onto my property, untreated and uncollected, and we were going to fix that when we're doing our project. And so we've done some things to make that work, because right now they're just dumping water on our property. We're also, like Ms. Novak, we're going to get her hooked up. She's already had well issues and septic issues, and you know, part of our trade with her is to help her. You know, why the trade works is she needs to be connected or wants to be connected to city sewer and water, and right now she's not, and it's been a problem. We're going to clean that up as part of this deal. So Ms. Novak, who's been a good neighbor there. So it's a win-win. A lot of things happen to the city. The city gets some connections that aren't there right now, so you're not, you know, we get rid of some septic systems that are there. And as well as clean up the stormwater issue that's there. I mean, I think this is a great project. It helps the city. And yes, we have to insulate it, but it's been done. And my guy that does that stuff for us, he does a lot of them, and I know they'll do a great job. And the guy won't be out there heating that. You know, at 6 feet, that's a lot different than 5 feet or even 4 feet. I mean, that doesn't take long. With 6 feet, you can put a lot of insulation in there and keep that pipe, you know, plenty warm. Sorry if I got way off track there, but that's your question.
Other comments, discussion from the planning commission?
So just to clarify, my understanding that is a viable option then for that angle and then the clip corner?
That is not in the proposal. So if we approve this evening, that is not in the proposal, and there is no guarantee of that.
Could you make it a condition?
I can't change, as the city attorney told Donovan, we cannot change your proposal, right? As someone who has an 8-foot water line that I keep dripping because it has frozen on me several times, no, I don't have faith in 6 feet. And we have several wonderful companies in town that make their living in the winter thawing out private lines. And while I am all for encouraging business development in the city, this is not the way I want to do it. You're an experienced individual, and you have been doing work in the city for quite a while. If we approve this evening, you can certainly sell this lot as an approved lot, and then there is no hold about whether or not we would have insulation of whatever kind. So from my perspective, as only one vote, I cannot set the city up for that potential problem. And so while I grant that you would have the potential to have several properties on this, you have made a choice to make 3 lots instead of however many, and you have submitted what you've submitted. I do have a problem with the line, and when I'm looking at the engineering report, it does not say 6 feet. The estimated service line depth is 4 to 5 feet at its highest point.
He's guessing. I have stuff from my engineer I sent him that shows the exact connection of the Y.
That's inaccurate.
That's not right.
And that's been
We do accept the 6.2 as a valid number.
6.2,
6.2,
correct.
0.2.
That's an important clarification for the record. I'm glad you
All right.
raised it.
And you may certainly make that clarification.
And that's within the crown, you know, at the crown of the road. So, you know, at the edge of the road, it's gonna be less.
I understand that. Okay, are there other comments of the planning commission? Yes, Donovan?
Can I address a question to you, Commissioner Miller? I found it contradictory. Your findings of fact are for adoption of a denial due to the fact that there's a non-conformance with the city standard. So do you want to adjust your findings of fact, or adjust your motion to perhaps find new findings of fact, or just, or?
As I heard Mr. Miller's motion, he was modifying what you had written on here to make new findings of fact. And Mr. Miller, did you make an additional requirement?
The 2 findings of fact.
Okay.
Yeah, for approval.
And what are those findings, sir?
Conditions.
Oh, I'm sorry, those were 2 conditions of the approval, right? I'm sorry, did I not make the proper motion?
No, it sounded to me like you were adopting the findings of fact.
Oh,
which-
no.
Which right above are actually contrary to what you're proposing.
I see what you're saying, adopt the
just so we
findings
have
of
a
facts for
clear-
approval, yep, I see what you're saying, yep. No, let me, okay, we have to withdraw that, or do I have to clarify it?
Madam Chair, may I make a comment, please? The commissioner's motion was perfectly understandable for approval, as I understood it. Is
No, it
that
was
correct?
not, sir. No, it was not. He is adopting findings of fact. The findings of fact are very clearly stated here for denial. What he is saying, and what I believe Mr. Miller wishes to do, is, and I'm going to ask him to restate his motion very clearly, was to approve the request with 2 conditions.
Yes, that's what I would like to do. I apologize, and I'll make it
And
very
that's what I
clear.
heard, Madam Chair, so I didn't
But-
want it to get confused.
Yep, let's make it clear. I would like to recommend that the Planning Commission approve the proposed minor subdivision on the portion of the existing lot located at the intersection of Broadway Avenue and 232nd into 3 lots with the following 2 conditions. 1, successful completion of the lot line adjustment, and 2, satisfy the technical requirements for completing the service for insulated sewer line at a minimum of 6-foot depth.
Recommendation.
And
to
that does
council.
not have any
Oh,
insulation.
I'm sorry,
sir.
recommendation to council for approval,
Right, I
I'm
didn't
sorry.
write that correctly.
Yeah, I see that. That's right, because we're recommending it to council. Is that okay?
Do you have that second?
Yep, I had the second, and I'd second, you know.
All right. I would request an amendment because you do not, since you are approving this, I believe that you also need to meet the other technical recommendations of the city engineer with respect to driveways. You're going to need to meet the requirements of the watershed district. So those things need to happen for us to have a valid and appropriate subdivision.
It'd be a full motion to address other city concerns.
Yes.
I mean, it's simply a recommendation. Council can, of course, approve with their conditions as well. There's also the additional one that the engineer stated that he desired that lot number 1 have a document recorded with the deed that the sanitary sewer line is subject to,
Freezing.
to freezing in the wintertime.
So would something as to the effect of any other conditions city engineer and city council recommend? Would that be something that covers all of that? Or do I have to specify everything individually?
I believe that would be appropriate.
Okay, let's try this again. Is that okay? All right.
Karen, are you okay with, are you keeping up here?
I'm gonna have to watch it back, but go ahead.
All right.
Good.
All right. I recommend that the Planning Commission approve the proposed minor subdivision to the city council, approve to the city council.
Recommend to the city
Recommend to the
council
city council. the
approval of.
Approval of the proposed minor subdivision on the portion of the existing lot located at the intersection of Broadway Avenue and 232nd Street into 3 lots with the following conditions. 1, successful completion of the lot line adjustment. 2, satisfying all technical requirements for completing the service for insulated sewer line at a minimum of 6-foot depth. And 3, any other conditions city engineer and city council recommend. And watershed district recommend.
Are you willing to second that?
I second that.
All right. Is there any further discussion? Karen, could you please call roll?
Commissioner Young,
No.
Commissioner Batty,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Commissioner Keen,
No.
Commissioner Brink.
Aye.
Go forth.
Can I wait here with her? We have, I'll let her come up here. She's next. Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is 4535 232nd Street, a zoning map application. Donovan, could you please walk us through this?
I'd like to, Madam Chair, I'd like to state that the 435 232nd Street variance application has been withdrawn in writing. I was notified in writing earlier this week.
Okay.
Been number 9,
Okay.
just for clarity.
So the variance application has been withdrawn. All right. So we'll move on to item number 10, 4535 232nd Street, and it is a zoning map application. Come on down.
So, Ms.
We're going to make it easy on you.
So this is something of a, a little bit of a story here, and involves Ms. Stacy Novak, the applicant. She lives at 4535 232nd Street. Back in last November, or it could probably been in October, when Mr. Smith had proposed a zoning map amendment, I reached out to Ms. Novak, hoping that she would join with the zoning map amendment, and I didn't get a response from her, and so we weren't going to zone a property without your permission, rezone it to, from the B2 to the MXR1, from the commercial to the residential. So at one point, when it looked like we're trying to save a shed, and that was going to be the variance application, changing this property from commercial to residential meant that structure setback went from 35 to 10 feet. That seemed like one good reason to do it. Another good reason is that the single-family use on this property is non-conforming with the B2 commercial district standards. And that really had a practical impact where if you had applied, for instance, for a house addition, maybe another, expand a detached structure, the city wouldn't have been able to allow it. So in this case, and I don't know why it was included in the B2 commercial district. It's part of the quarter, which is Mr. Smith's larger property. And it's just one little corner that was carved out at some point. I'm not sure the history on that. So in this case, it seemed like the city could do the right thing. So we sponsored the zoning map amendment to change the property from B2 highway commercial to MXR1, single family and townhouse residential, mixed residential, single family and townhouse. The finding facts do support this, that it will not adversely affect nearby property values and it will eliminate a non-conforming use on the property and thus allow the expansion of a single-family home, which would not have been possible in the B2 commercial district. And so in this case, staff recommends to the Plan Commission to adopt the findings of fact and recommend to City Council to change the zoning district of 4535 232nd Street from B2 Highway Business to MXR1 Mixed Residential Single Family and Townhouse Zoning District. That, I'm happy to take any questions from the Plan Commission.
Are there any questions of Donovan from the Planning Commission members? Ms. Novak, I believe that this is something that you wish to do?
Yes, ma'am. I had wanted to make sure that it wasn't commercial anymore, that it was residential, because I believe I've been getting overtaxed on it too.
Very good. We do have a public hearing slated for this evening. I don't see anybody here except you who would be interested in speaking at the public hearing. Karen, do we have anybody online who is indicating that they would like to speak at the public hearing?
I do not.
Can you open it officially and close it?
Yes. Sorry, it's been a really long day.
I hope Paul's having a good time in his family reunion.
All right, I am officially opening the public hearing. I do not see anybody here in the room. Karen, one more time, do you see anybody online who would be interested in speaking to this public hearing?
Commissioner Young, I have no one who would be willing to speak.
Last chance, going. I'm now going to close the public hearing appropriately. Planning Commission members, do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt the findings of fact, recommend the City Council to change the zoning district 4535 232nd Street from B2 Highway Business to Mixed Residential Single Family Townhouse Zoning District.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
That was Mr. Keen. Is there any discussion of the motion by the Planning Commissioners? Karen, could you please call roll?
Commissioner Young,
Yes.
Commissioner Batty,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Commissioner Keen,
Aye.
and Commissioner Brink.
Aye.
You have been approved and by the Planning Commission, and it is our recommendation to the City Council that this also be approved. Now, there are a couple of steps after that because it's a zoning change and it has to be approved by the Metropolitan Council. But I would not expect that they would have an issue with this.
Yes, ma'am.
All right?
Thank you.
Have a very good evening. Okay. Karen, I don't believe we had a council member on tonight's call, did we?
No, we do not.
Okay. Donovan, do you have other items for us to consider this evening?
No, I would just state that we do have an agenda item for that July 28th council meeting, and if I can do a scramble, maybe we could talk about some more zoning stuff on that first Planning Commission meeting, but I don't want to commit at this moment. You know, that would be the
Comp plan?
the 14th.
Zoning, the zoning code.
That's it for me.
Yes, sir.
I'm just curious, 217th seems to be coming up a lot. And I'm just wondering if it would make any sense to sit down, in discussions with the city and just, is there anything we can do to look at that road and what's going on down there to kind of figure out what the best solutions are? Because it seems like every application that comes in is looking for a variance on that road. I mean, and they say if you're gonna, be granting variances all the time, you might as well change the code or the rules, right? I mean, and so we've granted just since I've been on the commission, a number of variances down there. And I'm just wondering, is there anything we can do to look at that as a city, to kind of figure out the best solution for that? I mean, it was really hard tonight. I mean, I'm gonna be open, and I know we're on the record, but it was really hard tonight not to, give them suggestions to work with that. And I know we're not supposed to do that, but I mean, obviously, there's a lot of things they can do to make that work without necessarily a 15-foot variance. But they may still need something, but Donovan, is there anything we can do about that? I mean,
Well-
just to kind of meet and look at that whole area, or is that nothing we can do?
I'm going to interrupt, Donovan. One of the problems is, if we make that a city street, we're going to have to bring it up to city standards. And that is going to be, one, very expensive, and two, there will be a property lost, all right? Because we will require a wider road, and we're going to need to bring it up to the standards that our fire department and, everybody else would require. So I think that it would be problematic for the area. One of the reasons that I have a real bias against private roads and private water and private sewer.
Yeah, and that's exactly my thought is, it seems like most of the property on the, I guess be the north side of the road would have room to, again, we would be acquiring property, but it seems like we'd have room to make that road the proper width, especially for emergency reasons like fires and ambulances and service vehicles, versus the way it is now. I mean, I think it would be an improvement for those neighbors in some respects, and there'd probably be assessments, obviously, but I think it would be better for the city. I think it'd be better for them, and I think we could correct a lot of this variance nonsense. Just a thought, I don't know.
Yeah. But that's what you're referring to is the road? Because what I was hearing was just simply, was there zoning standards that could be like an overlay district or something that would?
I'm kind of talking about both, I mean, the
But I
road
mean-
definitely needs something, and we need some overlay standards, I think, for that road.
Well, it's I mean, because we couldn't really be talking about the whole single-family zoning district, which is what circles Forest Lake as well. Because that'd be a huge change. And of course, this is in the Shoreline Overlay District, so any kind of rules would also have to be somehow, also get, state, couldn't be looser than, it would have to be as strict or stricter state standards. But with the road, I mean, you're thinking like, blue sky. If you put the, did the road to the north of all the properties, then you'd have, really large properties,
Yeah.
Really deep. And it would change, the lot area, impervious surface, each of those lots, because we have to treat them as individual lots. And so, on both sides of the road. But, if the road shifted north, which if you look in the old plat, the road did have a different location sometime along the way. I think it was platted in the 40s, or at least one portion of it. I think it, used to kind of dip southward somewhere. I mean, again, that is Commissioner Young mentioned a huge cost and, benefiting, obviously, those property owners. I mean, for the city, our biggest concern is more about the drainage. I mean, we talked about one drainage ditch being filled in between those properties, which is great. Dave he just got out there and read the land, and then we went down the shoreland, and the rocks, and Dave clawed away a few rocks, and sure enough, there was, the town drain tile with concrete and corrugated pipe inside, which he knows, from elsewhere in the city, he knew it was there. When they think, city staff thinks that other ditches have been filled in. And that's our biggest concern, is that type of flooding. You heard tonight discussion, around the MnDOT, and even they mentioned, all the apartments being built north of 11th Avenue, it's causing more impervious, more runoff, more water flowing into the wetlands, thus, aggravating, flooding issues, but if you talk to city staff, they have a different view. It relates more to, and that's our, kind of, I would say for our staff consideration. I mean, obviously beyond these, and, you're correct that we've seen a few variances. Those members were here tonight, residents. But, many ways also that echoes, or, where people are taking these, cabins, homes for, used to be for just one household, now they want to have for 2 households. And it's mostly, from 2 seasons to 4 seasons, and, but, I don't know, there's no easy answers to.
Frank?
Nothing right now, but when we get off of YouTube, I do have a question about 217th Street and the house that was built recently.
Patty? I have nothing else.
I'm sorry, one more thing. The applicant for the 7089 variance did appeal that decision last week. That'll go before council in the first meeting in August.
Apologize for not being here. It was an opportunity for me to meet my daughter in Boston. I don't get to see her very often. And I don't think I've missed very many meetings. So, my apologies.
Please tell us in the future.
It's interesting.
Yes. I had actually intended to do it from Boston, but we ran into a problem. So. All right. With there no other further discussion, I hereby close the meeting. And the meeting is now ended. Karen, you can shut it. A motion to adjourn, please.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Karen, one last roll call, please.
Commissioner Young,
Aye.
Commissioner Batty,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Commissioner Keen,
Aye.
and Commissioner Brink.
Aye.
Now I may declare the meeting closed. Not my best night. I apologize, folks.
Yeah.